Tell me your story.
How did it all start? Do you remember?
Oh, now what happened? How did it start?
This is Small Business Origins.
Yeah, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Small Business Origins. You're tuned in to our nationwide search. We're looking for entrepreneurs that have a story to tell. And joining me virtually in the studio, I've got an entrepreneur that wants to do just that. From New York City with an office in Tampa, Florida, I've got Richard Guzmano. He is with Business Credit Consultants. Richard, welcome to the show, brother.
Well, thanks for having me, John. How are you?
Doing great, and I am excited for another episode. I truly enjoy recording these things. It's a lot of fun. So it takes the monotony out of my day, something we spoke about prior to the show, and helps me kind of break up what I'm doing over here on the sales grind, calling these people. So I'm happy to be here, man. How about you?
I was really looking forward to speaking to you, and I am happy to be here today.
Heck yeah, man. Well, before we get into it, we always start out with an icebreaker question. And today's icebreaker question is, what game show do you think you could win?
Have to be pretty simple. I suck at Jeopardy there, John. It'd have to be like the $10,000 pyramid or 100,000 pyramid, where it would be just simply luck.
Man, you
have to be honest.
You literally, like, not the actual game show, but you stole my answer, because same thing. I'll tell you this, when I'm sitting at home, I can be, nowhere near great like the champions of Jeopardy, but I can do pretty decent on Jeopardy. When I'm sitting at home, I can do pretty decent on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. But when you're in the hot seat, pun intended, and all the cameras are on you and there's an audience and everything else, I already know from being in front of audiences, I'm going to freeze up. And the simplest answer, something that is super easy, because I'll tell you a story. I was in a spelling bee in 5th grade. And I was a really good speller. I just, something like pronouncing your last name, it's always been a stickler to me to make sure that I spell names correctly, that I spell things correctly. I am very big on making sure that I'm spelling words in the right way. And so a spelling bee was just natural to me. I was doing very well at it. And I got in front of my entire school in 5th grade. And I had one of the easiest words that they could have given me for the very first word that I stood up to say. And it was woman. And all I did, and I realized it immediately, but in the spelling bee, you can't correct yourself. So once you say it, it is done. So I literally said women, WOMAEN. And that was it. Done. You're out. And it was because I was so nervous, and it's so silly. So I know that would be me on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Jeopardy. Are you smarter than a 5th grader? I don't want to go embarrass myself on national television.
No.
So
that would be disastrous.
The one that I loved, and I don't even know if this is still ongoing or not. I don't think it is, but Deal or No Deal.
I don't know either, because that was Howie Mandel, wasn't it?
And that one is kind of one that you always win. It may be $25 or whatever the lowest prize is, but you're going to win something. So I think I could win that. I don't think I'd win the big prize, but
yeah, I'm with you. Gotta say.
Yeah. I know when I'm under that pressure, I'd make the wrong decision. And the whole time I'd have been holding $1 million bag, and then I'd give it away for a $50 bag.
Yeah, no, listen, the whole spelling bee has scarred you. I get it.
Yep.
I'm with you.
It's post-traumatic stress from all of that, man. It really is, all joking aside. It is just, those nerves get you, man. Well, I've got to take a second and talk about our sponsors. And if you're tired of juggling multiple platforms for your marketing and sales needs, it's time to revolutionize your business operations with Wingman. It's an all-in-one marketing automation software designed by experienced marketers who understand your struggles and combine the best tools to streamline your communication, automate your workflows, and grow your business. You can say goodbye to multiple marketing tools and hello to Wingman, your unified platform for all of your business needs. If you're ready to take your business to new heights, visit trustyourwingman.com today and let Wingman be your co-pilot to success, because every business needs a wingman. But Richard, we're here to talk about you, man. So the same thing I ask everybody on this show is, who are you? Where'd you come from? How'd you get into entrepreneurship? What's your origin story?
Well, first of all, I'm not used to speaking about myself because I have a wife and she speaks for me typically. But years and years and years ago, I out of college with like a liberal arts type of degree, which really wasn't so useful, ended up selling cars for a short period of time. And there was a customer that kept coming in and getting these mini Ram vans, the old Dodge minivans, and probably bought 3 or 4 of them within 2 or 3 months. And I was like, well, what do you do? after the second one, he said, I am a messenger. And what he was, he would be an independent contractor. And he would drive in the New York metropolitan area in and out of the city. Now, this was predating fax machines, which gives you an indication of how many years ago it was. And, you would work back then and maybe make $100 or $150 a day back in the early 80s. And he was making money. And I always liked driving. And so instead of selling cars, which was horrific, I did that. And I would drive in and out of the city, and I was making maybe $150 a day. And then the company I worked for, I was subcontracting from, needed someone to dispatch because someone was going on vacation. And it was like a fish to water. And I was now working for them inside and then delivering items on the way home, making, $1,000 a week back in the early 80s was a lot of money for a kid. And that company within 6 months was sold. When it was sold, I didn't have to go with the people that bought the company. And a lot of the clients, because there was no non-compete clause or something to that effect. So I ended up taking a lot of the clients, and they wanted to deal with me because I had dealt with them as a dispatcher and somebody that had met them delivering items for them. And so pretty much within no time, I was going from one position as a salesperson to a driver to a dispatcher to now people asking me and giving me money to open up a business. So we went from myself and a driver to 50 employees within 2 years. And we were doing, on small deliveries, we did over $1 million in business back then. And that's a lot of money to make on, $15 or $20 deliveries. So, but like so many things, markets change things. So when fax machines come in and people don't need to have that handwritten note, now we had to transition into trucking and air freight and different types of things. And so over time, I sold that business and went on to other things, but that was my first flavor of it. And really what it was establishing rapport with clients, doing what you say you're going to do, and, taking care of the people that work for you, the subcontractors, the 1099s, if you will. And, once you get a flavor of it or you get a taste of it, John, I don't know about you, but that was, now I didn't really want to work for someone else. And that's how it started.
Yeah. I would say you were probably tainted at an early age with that too, because like you said, once you find that freedom that entrepreneurs are looking for, it's so hard to go back and say, okay, I'm going to clock in for somebody. I've heard so many of my friends who are entrepreneurs say that I could never imagine clocking in for someone again. So that's just insane.
That's absolutely the case.
What do you think, as far as what you're doing today, were there any big lessons that you kind of took away from delivering these, all of these letters, being a courier? Was there something that kind of set you up for the business that you're doing now that you drew from, or was it something you kind of had to acquire later?
Well, there's a gap of time after I sold. So then started another business, and then came to understand the way that business worked. And a market changed that. It was an IT, staffing and placement firm. So that went well until the Y2K switch. So now, again, timing is what changes things. But now, what it's meant for me was that now I've had a greater understanding of other businesses. And while I did that, I started to build homes on the side in vacation areas. So now I've got experience on a few different levels with a few different types of businesses. And so what's happened is that, over time, people kept asking me, what should I do here? How should I do this? Now I had to get financing for 2 of the businesses. And so it came to be that, I understood the way that the bankers thought and what they needed. And so really it was where we are now and where we've been since 2011 is a culmination of a career and experience in dealing with all different types of business. And we have to be generalists. We have to understand the way all businesses work because we have to know the way to present them best in the best light to the banks that we work with, and really work with their accountants to put them in the best possible light, to get the best results, to borrow their money so that they can scale their businesses. So it's all kind of woven into where we are from there to here.
Yeah. It seems like, talking about days past, it seems like back then things were a little longer to stick around because technology didn't transform as fast, even though it was still lightning speed transformations. It didn't seem to transform as fast as it does now, where now over a period of 2 to 3 years, I've seen some industries that, became such a big deal in such a small amount of time and then changed the way that we were doing things, like you brought up with the facsimiles. It's like sending a fax was just groundbreaking because, as you said, someone would need to hire and pay a lot of money to get a piece of paper from one end of the city to another, not even counting from one side of the country to another. Or now what we've really found when we kind of watch these old videos of the internet popping up and they're like, everyone's going to be connected and this is crazy. And it's like, now you can go worldwide with a handwritten letter. You can sign something digitally without ever even signing it physically, whether that is with your hand-drawn signature on something or just a time-stamped and digitally secured signature. So are you seeing that even more now with this whole needing to be a generalist thing, that it's like where you got into a certain niche business in the 80s and you knew that was going to stick around for a decade or maybe two, all of a sudden you're speaking to businesses today and kind of helping them build up some of these new business ideas, but this niche may only last you a year. And then even expanding on that, sometimes we'll see where it's like you can make $1 billion in that year if you do it right. But how do I kind of plan out and figure out, talking to people like you and others that do other parts of the business to help me build that, to try and figure out how we can pivot and change our businesses quick enough to stay relevant or sell quick enough to get into a new business altogether?
I think that it's an interesting question. I think what we see over and over again are segmentations of businesses. And by that, I mean, we see repeatedly logistics companies because they're, the volatility of fuel costs. We see medical practices and they're somewhat challenged because of insurances and not necessarily paying the entire bill. If they bill $1,000, maybe the insurance company pays 28%. And so they're always looking for ways to not have to bill through insurances. We see construction entities. We see these folks constantly needing to borrow or to cover jobs so that they can buy the materials necessary to do the things. We see marketing companies. We see e-commerce companies. The technology, though, and the way that things change, banks, and we predominantly work with banks. The banks want to see some type of seasoning, typically, and they want to see good credit. And so technology is an outgrowth of the way that a business bills and collects or expands. They're still going to be relevant year over year, but it's really, how do you bill? How do you collect from your clients? What does the new technology do for you? What's the cost of the infrastructure? And that's where we get involved, to be able to break it down and then to dissect it in a way and present it in such a way that the lenders are going to want to respond to this particular company. And the chasm with that, John, is that, in the system, the way that we work with in finance and with business finance, you've got your entrepreneurs, then you've got their CPA. Now the CPA, by definition, they want to mitigate earnings so that you pay less taxes. But if you show losses, now the bank doesn't want to go near you. So there's that balance that we have to coddle and make sure that the CPA understands we're looking to borrow this year. We want a line of credit through X bank. So we have to be strong. We can't be so aggressive with our line items and our losses. We have to make sure that the owner's credit is strong. And that, why does my credit need to be strong? It's a business I'm borrowing for. Well, if you don't pay your personal bills, you're likely not going to pay your business bills. So, irrespective of the tech, it's breaking it down to the way that the banks want to see things and the lenders want to see it, and creating the optics and making sure our clients make the right first impression.
I know this will help shed some light on the overall topic here, but I think maybe it's a good time to transition into what exactly your business does for entrepreneurs. And then on top of that, I know that you've got a business partner that you spoke about and stuff like that. So if you want to bring those things into it and kind of discuss the dynamics there and what it is exactly that you do for entrepreneurs.
Sure. Happy to. So we are typically brought to us when they're looking to borrow money or to scale their businesses, or on an hourly rate. We're asked to come in on a small entity that might have anywhere from, say, 2 to 25 employees that might be too small to have their own CFO and to handle and to do projections and to allow them to be proactive as opposed to reactive. And so when we're brought in on an hourly basis, we can come in as a temporary CFO and just stabilize things and say, where we're going with this and where you're going with that. If we're brought in specifically to help them utilize leverage, we want to make sure that their numbers are correct. We want to make sure that if there's a disparity year over year in terms of what they're, if they earned, an example, a file this morning, they did $1 million in sales last year and they had $182,000 in profit. The following year in 23, they did $2 million in sales and they have a $400,000 loss. And we're like, well, how can that be? We have to go through line items on the general ledger to determine why. How could you double the business and lose? So we have to make sure that everything's accurate before we present to the banks, and then know the banks that are going to want to deal with that type of entity. And we have technology that actually scores a client from an algorithm based upon their credit, personal, their business to business credit, their inquiries, how many different people they've tried to borrow money from, their type of business, and the liquidity that they have going in and out of their account. Now, this is not exciting stuff per se, but to keep a business going, you need to know these things, and the banks want to understand these things too. And you know the old saying, banks want to lend you money when you don't need it. So we have to make sure that prior to borrowing that they're presenting in the proper light. So the technology helps our clients understand the certainty of it. It's not taking our word for it. It says, here's the data. Here's why you are here. And here's what you need to improve to get there. So we are that subset for those clients that may not be empirically ready to go to the bank. And there are a lot of, if you think about it, 99% of the companies in our country are small businesses, and they employ over 50% of the population. And if they're borrowing wrong, or if they don't have the right cost of capital, or they're, they don't have enough money to keep the lights on or to pay the insurances, they're not only affecting their business, but all the people that they're employing. So that's what we do. And my partner is a, you and I discussed this. He's younger. I'm the old school. I'm the dinosaur, right? That understands all these, the different dynamics of banking. And he's been terrific in being able to bring it into 2024 with the technology, with a system that is repeatable, and it helps us serve more clients.
I'll tell you, man, numbers is definitely something I think most entrepreneurs, including myself, find to be the most boring part of a business. You're right. Yeah. But you know what's exciting is when, and in the wrong way, this is exciting, is when you do have a great year and then you scale, which means you spend more because you're going to make more, but you have to do more, which means you need more. So you scale, and then that next year comes in and all of a sudden you're hit with a tax bill you can't afford off of the profits because you don't have money left over because you spent so much in infrastructure that you're overspending because you're not budgeted correctly. And then all of a sudden you thought, holy shit, let's buy everything. Let's take everyone out to Perry's Steakhouse or our favorite place to go eat, Vic and Anthony's or whatever it is, because we need to celebrate. This has been a hell of a year for us. And then all of a sudden you have no money and you're going broke. That's exciting. And so if you want the opposite of that excitement, something where you're going to say, holy crap, I can't believe I have all of this money left over as profits. Awesome. Let's give out bonuses. Let's take our teams out. Let's do whatever we need to do. Let's reinvest a certain amount so we make even more money off of our money without doing any work, because we're investing it and making money off of the money itself. That's what's truly exciting for an entrepreneur. So I would just caution entrepreneurs listening and say that one of the most important pieces, if not the most important piece of your business you need to have together behind taking care of your people and having that culture together would be your finances. CFO is extremely important. And don't get me wrong, as a marketing agency employee, as a marketing advisor, you need good marketing to get business. But if you don't have money, you can't buy marketing and you can't actually fulfill for your clients and do what you need to do. So definitely something that's been kind of weighing on my heart lately is that exact thing where it's like, if your finances aren't squared away, it's just like at home. If you're just spending, and you don't know how much you have, why you have it, and where it needs to go to get the job done, or if you try to scale too quickly and you're not taking your finances into consideration when you do that, you're going to have a nightmare, because you're either not going to spend enough. And I'm talking to mainly the solopreneurs or the small teams here, like you said, the small businesses that are the backbone of this country. But why do 50% of them fail in 5 years? And I've
cash reserves or lack thereof, right? And so one of the things that you were saying, John, was, the fourth quarter of a year, you should be trying to determine where you want to be at year end. Now, if you're an S corporation and the profits are trickling down to the shareholders, the owners, you want to minimize the earnings. You want to start in the fourth quarter to start maybe pushing things back a little bit. Let's push back on collecting things until January. Let's pay down that credit card debt. Let's make sure that we're not going to show too much, because we want to mitigate earnings, and you can do that in advance. And then really it's about being ahead of the curve as opposed to behind it. Pretty much exactly what you're saying. Does that mean you send out bonuses? Maybe. What do we want to do? Do we want to show a big earnings this year because we want to take a big loan? We need to know how much debt service coverage to show for a bank and what's the collateral. Those are the things that we come in and we have to coach the people on, because again, you're a marketing company and we have to understand that, but you know that better than we do, right? But we have to be able to understand the system and how best for you to look right and to have the right amount of reserves and to have the right credit instruments available to you if you want to buy more or hire more or do what you need to do. It's spot on. You're preaching to the choir.
Yeah. And I'll tell you too, there is a lot of confusion on something else you mentioned, which is like, well, I'm not worried about it, John, because I've got a really good financial thing going here. I've got a great CPA. They help me with those things. I'm using great software that's tracking my expenditures, and my CPA is consolidating all that and filing my taxes for me. But finances, the little bit I know about it, is so much more than just a CPA or a tax professional, as you said, because it's only looking from one angle.
Where we see the biggest chasm, the biggest problem, is that business owners are so busy. And rather than contacting their CPA or, what they'll do is they'll go to the internet and they know they want money and they'll take, things that we've all seen them on television or we've heard them on the radio, and they're not loans, they're purchase against future sales, because they circumvent usury law by doing that, and they can charge higher interest rates. And so they take what they think is, something to satisfy a short-term need, and then the velocity with which to pay that money back is so quick, and it puts such a hurt on their cash flow that they end up taking another one of those instruments. And now it's like having two monkeys on your back. And then the ever optimistic entrepreneur thinks that, it's just going to be temporary because I'm going to get this big deal, and they take a third. So we had, and again, this just closed last week. We helped a client, had 4 of those instruments, and they were paying $80,000 a month to debt.
God.
$80,000 a month. Now, we worked with one of our institutional partners to get that individual an 18-month note, saving him $57,000 a month. And with the idea that after 12 months or so, given more profits in this year, he'll be able to get a 10-year note at interest rates at prime plus, say, 2. And those are the things that the most alarming things that we see. People just think that, the world is now, using technology, and referencing what you said previously. You got to be careful. You have to be a little bit more thorough in what you do when you're trying to gain leverage for your business. And that's a very, very common mistake that we find in our inbox on a daily basis. People thinking that these are loans, and it's one deal away from everything being okay. And that's scary when you think about how many different people these companies are employing, and they don't know whether the bedrock of the company that they're working for is solid or not.
It sounds a lot like a title advance to me, where you're like giving up your world to this extremely high interest loan, if that's what you want to call it. And like you said, you're paying so much money. I mean, $80,000 a month. I know many entrepreneurs that wish they could make $80,000 a month in their company total, let alone pay that to debt. It sounds to me like you paid them to work with you at that point, because you saved them so much that you're literally paying them money to come to you.
Well, you would think that the perception would be that, they're in the barrel. They're just trying to survive. And they had collateral. And there were reasons. If you backed out the interest, they were a profitable entity. It was really a bump, a pothole that they hit, but then it became worse and worse and worse. And so this is a very common tale. That's the scary thing. And I realize the small entrepreneur may not be able to relate to that, because that business was doing, roughly 250 to 300,000 a month in sales, but they were not paying suppliers. They were not paying their payroll taxes. They were not paying things just to keep the debt service going. And we have to be accustomed to all the situations. And even if it's just setting up and helping people understand where they need to be 6 months from now, we're telling them to use corporate credit cards with strong credit at 0% interest to buy supplies, to try to help them, to help people do the right thing, so that at some point they're not going to need the temporary CFO. They're not going to need, they'll be able to walk into a bank. And the biggest mistake that we see, John, is that when people start their businesses and they got great ideas and they've identified a good market, they haven't really truly identified the amount of capital that they need to make it through. And that's why half of them go. That's the problem.
Yeah. So with business credit consultants, is this something, it sounds to me a lot like, and excuse my ignorance here, that's why I'm asking questions, right? But
Sure.
It sounds like you're more of a fractional CMO firm, if you will, because I know that a lot of that does entail the consulting side of things. Do you offer services in-house as well, or are you mainly preparing them to go to third-party vendors like a fractional CFO would?
What we do is we will act as a fractional CFO for a period of time, or we will work with them on a contingent retainer. If we see that they come to us and say, John, you came to me and your events business wants $100,000 to get through the upcoming season. You want to buy tents, you want to hire some staffing, you need to do a couple of different things. You want to upgrade your whether your DJ equipment, what have you, right? So rather than charging them by the hour, we might say, well, if we able to introduce you to one of these banks, then you'll pay us X after you've been paid. Because we see, based upon your earnings last year and your credit, this is something that will happen. And really the question will be, well, why don't we just go to our bank? Well, not every bank will want to work with that type of business per se. And every bank has a different credit box, or certain banks really don't want to lend to small businesses because they're more volatile. So it's really incumbent upon us to know who will. And then really the banks want our recommendations, and it adds an additional level of credence because they want our continued support, because we may do with them millions upon millions per year with that one bank, as opposed to the $100,000 ask that John is asking for. So, just us putting our arm on the shoulder of that account or that client, it opens the doors, because they want not just that one account, they want the 50 that they may get from us over the course of the year.
Yeah. I mean, that seems like a no-brainer to at least talk to you, because it seems like you're not only telling me I can help you go get these loans or this funding or whatever the case may be, but you're really whipping me into financial shape and helping shape how I'm going to spend and how I'm going to save, how I'm going to take loans out to prepare for the future so that I am in a better place. I mean, to me, that's the biggest thing, because a company like ours, that is something that we're interested in, is having that conversation of, what can we do? What type of funding is out there? Because we've made smart decisions, like you've mentioned, we've got a 0% interest credit card. We're able to upgrade some of our equipment if we want to with that, with a year of no interest. And then we know with our earnings that we could pay that entire credit card off in that year. Like, we're smart enough guys that we can figure this stuff out. But what we're not is out, and not smart enough, because we're smart, but we're not experienced enough in the financial operations of a business to be able to say, awesome, yeah, we can totally take out $100,000 loan. And then combined with our marketing efforts and the gigs that we're working and the people we're employing and the people we're paying to look over our finances, we're not only going to pay that back, but more. We're going to make more. That's the hard part, I think, for a lot of entrepreneurs is I can do the work. I know that. And I can sell to clients. I know that, but we rely on those referral businesses, and we're not able to invest in parts of our business that are going to drive more business to us to actually scale. So how does it look working with you in that aspect of, if I want my event services company to go from, $25,000, $30,000 a year and explode to $100,000 or $150,000 a year, is that something you're able to help me accomplish?
Well, yes. And that's pretty much, a lot of what we do. And typically what you've mentioned the foundation that you've gotten your 0% corporate credit card, and make sure it's a corporate credit card, not an individual credit card. We want it corporate, because we want to make sure that you have your personal credit, and we want to make sure now you have business credit. And at the same time, I think earlier you made mention of having so much business that it would almost be a problem. And the reality is that there's only two ways to go out of business. One is to not do enough business, and one is to do too much. So really what we would do with you or anybody in the same situation is say, look, let's work within the framework of modest growth. Let's do 10% growth over X amount of months, and then take a step back and see where we are. And let's now see where we are. What's our cash position? Let's look at this. Do we need to bring on people now? And what's the cost? And what's the soft cost of bringing people on? Because how much time are we going to spend training them? Should we outsource it? Should we use Upwork? Should we use other people like that to bring people in? Should we look at other parts of the world to bring people in where the cost might be for menial tasks might be infinitely more affordable? Do we, what are the costs for us to utilize, and what are we going to spend on web development, and what do we need? So again, it's incremental. So we would urge that people take their time, really have goals to meet, maybe on a quarterly basis, as opposed to let's just make it explode, because those are recipes for disaster.
Yeah. A really great coaching company that I'm a part of, that obviously my personal coach owns. But this is a big company with several coaches under different aspects of the business are all in there. And we had a big conference that we went to in Tampa, actually. And while we were there, that was something that I had kind of heard of for the first time, was this analogy of the flush test, where, a big hotel needs to have every toilet, or like the one they used was a stadium. If you're going to have this huge influx of people, you need every toilet to flush at the same time so you can make sure your system can handle it. And it's so important when it comes to sales and prospecting. That's how I think of it, is that if all of a sudden I had 500 people knocking at my door saying, come sell to me right now, could I handle that? Well, as one salesman, no, I need a sales team in place for that. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think financially it kind of plays the same way, where it's like, financially, can you handle all of these things? Because that's what we're now talking about outside of the operational side, the sales side. Financially, can you afford that team? And if you put that team in place and you close at a certain rate, and those 500 that came through the door, you only got 5% of them, and it equates to this much profits, not gross income off of sales, but actual profits for your company. Mm-hmm. Can you afford to pay that bill for the amount of people you need? And will it be consistent enough in the future that you do need that big team? Because if you don't, then you need to start thinking of outsourcing in other ways. Maybe you can have virtual assistants or appointment setters who are making those calls for you instead of an in-house team that requires benefits and all of this stuff. Like these are the things that kind of swirl around in my head. So it sounds like you're more of that well-rounded, we're going to give you a picture, not just how to file your taxes, but we're going to give you the big picture of here's what you need to do in order for your company to be able to afford what you're doing, to grow properly, and to scale the way you want to. And then eventually you prepare for us to get you even more money when you're growing even more. I think, and I know that this is like a long ramble here, but it's got me so excited for the first time ever about finances in a company. But I think of it like overall health, right? So you're my general practitioner. You're my doctor that I go to and I say, hey, I want to get healthier. I want to have better blood work when it comes back. I want to be stronger. I want to lose weight. I want to do all of these things. And so you're the puppeteer that has to take all of the moving pieces and say, then you need a good nutritionist. Here's your nutritionist. You need a good physical trainer. Here's a physical trainer. You need to make sure that you've got good medication to handle the problems that you're having right now so we can solve those things. And it's like all of those things, I saw this with my mom when she was battling emphysema and disabilities and all of these things going on in her life. And one doctor didn't seem to talk to the other. So a doctor would put her on blood pressure medication, but then the lung doctor says the effect it has on the lungs, I don't like. Why are you on this? And so you're kind of, to me, instead of just going to a CPA and getting my taxes done right, or going to a financial advisor and having someone look over my money and say, you're spending well, and here's how you can expand on it. You're that guy or that group of people that's coming to me and saying, in order to be financially well, here's all the things you need: a good CPA, a good financial advisor, a good, loan advisor or business advisor from a bank. And here's the bank you want to work with, and all of these types of things.
In a matter of speaking, yeah, it's even more so. And I'm sorry about your mom. I hope that she's well. But regardless, we have to tell people, if you have a $50,000 liability or less with the IRS, you can go online and you can get a payment plan without having to go visit and then extend the term on that. You need to be compliant with your taxes. You need to know how to do that. We have to pretty much spell things out because we've been through it hundreds and thousands of times before. And each situation, we see it. We've seen it before. We've seen problems with collections. We've seen problems with every single thing, minute detail. We've seen it, and we've had to walk and coach our clients through it. With bad relationships with CPAs or bad bookkeepers who mess things up. So we have to come in and we have to say, hey, let's fix this one step at a time. If it's a growing company, that's one thing. If it's a company that we need to restructure the debt, that's another thing. If it's just a company that just needs a sounding board, what do you think of this? We will do that on an hourly basis a couple of times a month just to catch up with people. The CPAs are very specific to taxes and very specific, especially this time of year. It's going to be very hard to get your CPA for the next several months to spend time with you. And again, they're not generalists. They understand tax law. They understand LLCs, S corps, trickle down earnings on Schedule C. They'll understand all those things. They'll understand Schedule L and what a balance sheet is. They'll understand your earnings, but they're not going to be able to necessarily, unless that's their area of expertise, to be a business consultant. That's not their bailiwick, if you will. They're going to tell you about the taxes. We have to try to help you navigate things and help these businesses get to where they are. And that's the other way that we get clients, is that people refer us to them. They didn't know that people like us existed. Small business consultants are not everywhere. We don't really have competition. Mostly, if you go and you deal with an intermediary for loans, they're only interested in getting loans for you. And are they interested in getting you the best rate? Possibly not, because that's going against what their earnings are. We're not a one-off company. We're a relationship-based entity that receives referrals and stay with clients for years. So we really don't have sales. We really don't, look to give things away, because our services, especially if we're retained on a contingent basis, we're only getting paid if we do what's acceptable to the client. So again, what we want to do is help business owners. I've been there. You're there. No one really can explain a lot of the different things that we have to deal with. And a lot of times it's a phone call. If you had said that at the end of the day, sometimes you and your partner want to work from a bar and have a drink. A lot of times it's the same thing. If you and I were to have a glass of something and just discuss what the challenges you're having, that can go a long way towards helping a business, because you're in it on a day-by-day basis. You're in the fight. Sometimes a third-party perspective is necessary, and it's not quite as dire sometimes as people think. And there are a lot of times it's just a very simple fix. And, if you need to defer payments on something for a period of time, that's doable. It's not going to be the end-all be-all. Just have to ask. If you don't ask, the answer is always no. So that's kind of, maybe big brother or uncle. Maybe that's what we are for these businesses. And it's not rocket science. That's why I would suck at Jeopardy. But, I know what we know. And, what we do is we help people, and we help them grow, and we help them borrow, and we help the small business owner be stronger. That's what we do.
That's amazing, man. If this is music to someone's ears that's listening right now, what's the best way to get started with you, find out more, all those things? How do I connect with you and then see if maybe we're a good fit to work together?
Sure. I'm happy to send people to www.b as in boy, C as in Charles, C as in Charles, USA.com. bccusa.com. It's Business Credit Consultants USA. And read it. Read what portions or what's specific to what your needs are. And if you want to apply for a business loan, there's a place to apply. If you want to schedule a meeting with a consultant, there's a place for you to do that as well. Just a conversation. Just get on a Calendly invite and someone will pick up, and then we'll go from there. And if it's somebody from this, from this podcast, make sure to just make a notation in the message that you heard this boring guy speak for a period of time, and that you'd like a return call back. I'm happy to pick up the phone.
Man, I don't think it's been boring at all. I think I have gotten a lot of really helpful information, and I'm sure if anyone out there is listening right now, they're an entrepreneur, they're getting that same benefit from this. So as always, we're going to have all of that information linked in the show notes as well. And then if this episode is live at some point in time on our social media pages, I'm sure that we have shared this episode out, and you would see those links in those show notes. So yeah, man, I can't thank you enough for coming on here today, Richard. I think it's been a lot more exciting than I thought a business credit conversation was going to be. That's for sure.
Sounds like a low bar, John, but I'll take it. I appreciate it.
I mean, I'm just a realist when it comes to what interests me and what doesn't. And when I read that first thing and I look at it, I'm like, okay, I can make anything interesting for sure. Like I can pick up what I need out of it, but sometimes you just know, like a good PR podcast. I've had some amazing friends that are PR companies on, and I love them to death. And their shows turned out to be a lot more exciting than I thought they were going to be. But when PR doesn't excite you, you don't think you're going to go into it with an exciting conversation off the front end. And then when you end the show, you're like, you know what? I really picked up something I needed to hear there.
Well, appreciate it. I didn't bore you to tears. It was nice meeting you. and look forward to chatting again.
Absolutely, man. I'm gonna have to come visit you in person when you get to that Tampa Bay residential location. I don't want to go up to the frigid temps of New York, during the winter. I do love visiting New York though, so I don't know. Maybe we need to come see your offices up there one day soon too.
All right, John. Thanks so much.
Not a problem. Listeners, thank you for being a part of yet another great episode of Small Business Origins. I can't thank you enough for tuning in every single week for another great entrepreneur and another great company doing amazing things. Please go support our guests. Check them out. Check out the website, see what they have going on. If they're a good fit for your business, consider at least having that phone call. I can tell you from my conversation with Richard, there's no way anyone on their team is going to be that high pressure a-hole salesman that's going to require you to sign up today. I know it's going to be a good conversation, and I know it's going to be eye-opening for you. So check them out. And that's it for us. It's been another wonderful episode. We really appreciate you. We appreciate our guests. But as always, we'll see you on the next one, and stay beefy, my friends.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Small Business Origins.
I love an origin story.
If you like what you just heard, leave us a review, subscribe, and share with a friend.
You guys, check this out.
They're going to love it. You're going to love it.